Brandel, it was only just a few days ago that we were talking about Tiger and his chances to resume his position at the Masters in April. He was fighting for the comeback, hoping that he was going to be there. This comes as a shock to all of us. What is your reaction?
Well, my first reaction, obviously, like everybody's, was just for his well-being. I mean, as Eamon just pointed out, we are in the golf business, and you think well down the line and far more insignificant. If the injuries that he sustained, and it sounds like he sustained a couple of broken legs, are not life-threatening, then you, of course, think about the golf. But immediately you begin to think about, and it's easy to speculate, and that speculation can take you to some dark places. But even the best case scenario, listening to him in the interview with Jim Nantz just the other day, and he said that he had to be very careful getting out of bed. He had to be very careful tying his shoes. And, listening to Eamon talk about, he had very little wiggle room, and I think that's appropriate. But, you look at the horrific scene right there as we're looking down on the accident, and it's just not hard to imagine serious injuries. And your heart goes out to, Tiger Woods' family, and, just great concern that these injuries are not life-sustaining, or life-threatening, I should say.
I mean, where Tiger Woods is in his career, we were discussing it earlier, and he was very much focused on getting back to the Masters, returning to Augusta National. He's got such fond memories there. He is still searching for those majors. It feels like he still feels like he has more left in the tank, still desperately hoping to return to competition and strengthen that legacy that is Tiger Woods. How does this fit into the whole narrative of Tiger Woods, what we've seen of him from the last 25 years? What kind of a chapter is this that we're witnessing right now, do you think?
Well, again, it is difficult to, sort of imagine golf in a moment like this. But again, if we're assuming the best case scenario, that the injuries are not life-threatening, and then again, you begin to think about just how fragile his back would have been. So to imagine that he could recover from the injury sustained, and then likely the exacerbation of the already bad back that he had and the surgery that he most recently had, it just seems like it would be a career ender. Again, it is very easy to sort of imagine the worst case scenario as it relates to his career. You can't help but think about Ben Hogan and the accident sustained also in February 2nd, 1949. And if you go back and you look at the news reports of that, of course, they talked about he may never walk again, and it was life-threatening and then career-ending. And of course, we know what Ben Hogan went on to do after that. His injuries healed, and he played arguably some of the greatest golf that's ever been played, and certainly the greatest golf of his career. But when you look at that scene and you consider the injuries that Tiger Woods has sort of dealt with for almost his entire career, even if these injuries that he sustained are not life-threatening, it's hard to imagine that he wouldn't have exacerbated already existing conditions in his back, which would certainly, one would be led to believe, threaten his career.
Yeah, it's such a fragile situation, Brandel. I wonder, we're also interconnected through Tiger Woods, all of us in golf, all of us, whether we're in media or players or fans. I think there's just a unifying effect when someone is that level of a superstar. I just wonder, in this moment right now, have we ever, has golf ever probably been almost as interconnected in terms of concern for one person and just all people who are into golf, and of course across the world in so many ways, but golf right now is watching, I think, probably more than it's ever watched any singular moment ever.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that, Jaime. As I was listening to Tiger Woods in the interview with Jim Nantz the other day, what struck me at the very onset of that interview, before he got to the golf-specific questions, and again, Tiger's impact in the world of golf and even in the world of sport is immeasurable. He's affected the people that have been drawn to the game, the appeal of the game, the profits in the game. So his appeal is so widespread and pervasive throughout the world of sport and world of golf. But beyond that, what struck me even more than his impact in the sporting world was him talking about his foundation and how important it was to emphasize the STEM education process, the science, technology, engineering, and math, and how important it was to him. That passion came out. So you think about, as he called them, the underserved children who have been impacted by his reach and his celebrity. These are presumably, many of them don't know the first thing about golf, but they know that they have been impacted by the celebrity and the star power and the philanthropy of this great man. So, from a philanthropic standpoint, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody in the world of golf who's had a bigger reach.
And Brandel, I mean, it's part of that celebrity, part of that profile that you're talking about that has led Tiger Woods to live one of the most scrutinized life that we've ever seen in sport. Every chapter, every move he has ever really made since breaking out as a young amateur has been documented, has been publicized, has been all over the news channels. And this is just another example of that. How much more of a challenge does it make to return and come back from something like this when every second of it is going to be documented by the global news outlets?
I get often asked this question at dinner with colleagues, with friends. Sometimes I pose it, but it's often been posed to me. Would you trade lives with Tiger Woods, knowing everything we know about the scrutiny that he endures on a day-to-day basis? I've never heard anybody ever, not one time, ever answer yes to that question. The money, the fame, the accomplishments. I think when you weigh all those against the constant scrutiny of everything he does and everywhere he's been, and at times he's been caught being human, and to weigh that against the invasion of his privacy, the fact that his kids' lives are scrutinized, his marriage is scrutinized, his relationships are scrutinized, everything he does on the golf course is scrutinized. Of course, you could say, pity, he's made all this money and he has all this fame, but ask yourself what that intrusion, what inconvenience that would be to anybody. And I don't think that anybody, for the most part, would want anything to do with that sort of scrutiny. And so when you consider, there's a cost of that. I think there's a human cost of that sort of scrutiny. And I think some of it, to some extent, is related to the injuries that he's endured. But when you look at that again, you look at that devastating scene, it's just not hard to speculate and go to some dark places. And if we just look at that and try to imagine the best case scenario that he does heal up, that's going to be a long, inevitably a very long process. And if he comes out of it healthy and the injuries heal, no doubt he's further injured his back, and Father Time will have crept on another year or two. And so this inevitable journey that he seemed to be on, to topple Sam Snead as the outright leader of all-time wins. And again, it seems trivial to even talk about these things, but we're imagining the best case scenario. It seems especially problematic right now.
Okay, well, Brandel, we really do appreciate your thoughts.